meeting of the Stratford Board of Education to order. Oh, sorry, my mic is off. Here we go. At 7:16. Today is Monday, March 27th. My name is Andrea Corcoran. I'm the board chair. We do have a quorum this evening, and I will ask Mrs. Wiltsey to do the invocation of pledge for us, please.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here, everyone. Please stand. We beseech you, Almighty God, to bless this meeting of the Board of Education. So guide and rule over our hearts and minds that all our deliberations and decisions may be in accordance with your will and lead to the advancement and welfare of the community of Stratford for whom we serve. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Okay, we are going to have our student representative reports. Ms. Golding is not able to make it this evening, and so we have Ms. Yasmin here instead. So for Stratford High, Yasmin. And you'll have to tell me how to say your last name, please.
Okay, so good evening. I would like to start off with introducing myself. So my name is Yasmin Sakumai, and I'm a senior at Stratford High School. So today I'm filling in for Tiana Golding, who is in a full dress rehearsal for Once Upon a Mattress, our Stratford High School spring musical, where she holds a lead role. So I would like to share a little bit about me so you can get to know me a little bit better. So I'm currently interested in the medical pathway, and I hope to continue advancing my efforts in my school, that I made in my school. So at Stratford High, I served as president-elect of HOSA last year. I now serve as president. Alongside the other officers and members, I've worked to create an accessible menstruation station, and am planning to attend the Johnson House Elementary School next week to speak on ideas related to healthcare. I've been honored to also serve as president of Connecticut HOSA. I also have an interest in studying African and African American history, another subject that I hope to expand on in college. Thank you, and now I will go over the March events. So on Tuesday, March 7th, the Stratford High School Culinary Department hosted leaders of Stratford's Rotary Club for lunch in their monthly meeting. This was a wonderful opportunity to showcase the talents of our students and connect with the greater Stratford community. March marked the conclusion of scheduling for our school counseling department. So far, they've created schedules for 1,187 students for next school year. So on Friday, March 10th, Stratford High School hosted their annual dodgeball tournament. So with 13 teams made up of current students, alumni, and faculty, it was a great night for all, and once again a very successful fundraiser for our student council. A combined student-alumni prevailed this year, proving that youth has its advantages. On Saturday, March 11th, the first ever Stratford High School Science Olympia team traveled to Yukon for the nation's most exciting K-12 science competition. Students work together in teams of up to 15 to compete in 23 events. These events range from year to year, but topics include anatomy and biology, earth science, chemistry, physics, geology, mechanical, and structural engineering or technology. Some events entail taking a test, while others involve doing hands-on labs or even building and bringing a device to the tournament. Thank you to Dr. Lucas, our department head at Stratford High School, for getting this off the ground this year, and also to Mr. Walsh and Ms. Clay. Our team did a great job on their inaugural appearance, with 2 students even finishing top 4 in the Fermi event. We're excited for next year. On Thursday, March 16th, students of the Stratford High School math team traveled to Southern Connecticut State University to compete in the Map Puzzle Challenge. 8 students represented Stratford High School in this challenge. During this statewide competition, teams of students worked together to solve various puzzles. Answers then produced clues to travel to various locations on campus, modeling a form of geocaching. Next year, we hope to expand the number of students attending. Additionally, March marked the end of the Fairfield County Math League season. Our team and achievement has grown since our participation began in the 2019 to 2020 school year. We will continue to participate in these events next year and hope to explore additional ways to engage in math events in and outside of our Stratford community. In Stratford High School Humanities Department, the lyrical submissions of Alpha Stratford and Bunnell students enrolled in the African American, Black, and Puerto Rican Latino course of studies debuted via our dinner showcase, a pre-recorded show by the musicians of Blues and Beyond. Thank you to our humanities teachers, Kathy Mack, Eric Tikiski, Sean McNone and David Jockle, who continue to inspire students to think critically, teach the nuances of a movement, and be change makers. In the words of senior Isaiah Johnson, consider that the history of these blues numbers grew out of the same history that lives to the present day. The past makes the present. The painful history that these songs grew out of still grips American society, and if we can understand that, we may be far more informed and ready to work towards positive change. Our civics classes and the humanities department are preparing to engage in a simulated election for the town's registrar of voters in early May. Our senior English courses are partnering with Sikorsky Credit Union for the financial literary fair, and our ninth graders will be receiving their public library cards and learning of community resources during our town partnership in English classes. On Friday, March 17th, the Stratford High School Band marched in the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade in New York City. The students, under the direction of Dr. Ryan, wowed the spectators on 5th Avenue as they traveled from 44th to 70th Street. March 23rd marked our return to our in-person grade 8 open house at Stratford High School. Almost 200 parents came out to hear a wonderful presentation by Stratford High School administration and department heads. Following that, members of the Stratford High School National Honor Society and our ushers provided our guests with guided tours of our new facility. Today, our school counseling department took 20 juniors to UConn Stanford. These college tours helped our students see the opportunities that lie ahead for them as they start to make plans for the future. Tomorrow is the 2023 School Day SAT for the juniors at Stratford High School and Bunnell High School. Good luck to everyone. While juniors will take the SAT, our 9th and 10th graders will have activities planned for them, including a career panel. We are looking forward to a wonderful day. This weekend, we invite you to Once Upon a Mattress, Stratford High School's spring musical. We will offer shows on Friday night and Saturday afternoon and evening. Please come enjoy the show. Thank you and have a great night.
From Bunnell High School, we have Kara Etienne.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Tian, and it is a pleasure to be addressing you this evening. Congratulations to Bunnell High School AP Physics teacher, Ms. Kristen Record, who was selected as one of 5 teachers in the nation to be inducted into the National Teachers Hall of Fame. On March 16th, Bunnell hosted a surprise celebration which included the superintendent, the mayor, state and CEA representatives, members of the Board of Ed and Central Office, Ms. Record's friends and family, all of her students in the science department. Ms. Record will be attending induction activities in Washington, D.C. and at the National Teachers Hall of Fame / National Memorial to Fallen Educators in Emporia, Kansas, later this spring and summer. She is just the 6th educator from the state of Connecticut to ever be inducted into the National Teacher Hall of Fame. Congratulations, Ms. Record, on this prestigious honor. The Men of Color was scheduled to have a visit from Senator Gaston on March 14th, but it was unfortunately postponed due to the inclement weather. On March 24th, Mr. Ramos had the opportunity to speak on behalf of Bunnell's MOC at the Connecticut Association of Athletic Directors Conference. Schools from across the state are looking to create student leadership clubs like the MOC at their schools. The Living in Color Club has been working hard collaborating with our English department. On March 22nd, our English department joined the LNC meeting to discuss curriculum and effective ways to address tough topics in class. LNC is looking forward to continue that collaboration. The school counseling department has been meeting in small groups with students in the junior class to discuss planning beyond high school. Tomorrow, grade 11 students will be taking the SAT at Bunnell High School. The counseling department is planning a trip to post-university in April. This trip will be for the junior class. Priority will be to the students who did not attend the UConn visit in the fall. School counselors are continuing to prepare for the upcoming AP testing, which begins in May. The band returned from California after a successful trip to the West Coast. The students watched a screening of Chang Can Dunk in the Walt Disney Theater and performed in a parade in Disneyland in Anaheim. On March 2nd, the band was invited and attended another private screening at the Avon Theater in Stratford. The film has been warmly received by critics and audiences alike, and currently has a 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The MAC Championships will be held at Bunnell on April 1st. Over 30 competing units from 3 states will be in attendance. The stage had a fantastic trip to see Phantom of the Opera last week. Students really enjoyed the show. They are currently in the thick of rehearsals for Mean Girls High School Edition for the spring musical. Please come out to see the show May 18th, 19th, and 20th at 7 p.m. and on May 20th at 2 p.m. Concert Choir and Select Choir are currently preparing for the spring concert in May. They're working to fundraise to get uniform for the choir. Please consider supporting one of the many fundraisers. Spring Flower Buds, in which we get half of the proceeds, and they also have a skating night at the CT Sports Center on April 21st. Please consider signing up and coming for a fun night. They will also be competing in June against other choirs in the area in Bristol, Connecticut. Bulldogs in Training will be heading over to Flood in Second Hill Lane on March 24th to take part in a team building activity along with a goals craft project. Young ladies from Second Hill Lane and Flood will be joining us. Interact Club will be taking part in the student-led Next Generations Conference in West Haven on March 25th. Two students, Candace Mack and Jessica Santos, will be facilitating two discussions. The purpose of the Next Generations is to facilitate a safe place for high school students to engage in constructive dialogue and exchange of ideas. Women's Empowerment Club has been busy with Women's History Month. We wrote positive affirmations to the 6th grade girls of Second Hill Lane and also created small posters of prominent women in history with a short bio to display in the halls of Flood. They took a trip to the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center in Hartford, Connecticut on March 16th. The purpose of this trip is to learn more about Harriet Beecher Stowe, specifically what inspired her to become an advocate of the abolitionist movement, the impact of her book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, and its complex historical legacy. Lastly, Women's Empowerment Club and Living in Color will be hosting our 2nd annual successful Woman Meet and Greet in the library on March 30th. Students from grades 9 through 12 will be able to meet these prominent women and discuss their experiences, setbacks, triumphs, and paths to achieving their goals. The purpose is to show young ladies that success is subjective to the individual and to provide these girls the opportunity to make connections with exceptional role models. Carl Mulligan's Wrestling and Madeline Grease Bowling were recognized as the March Athletes of the Month. The Bunnell football team took first place in the SWC weightlifting competition held last week at Pompeyron High School. Nominees to be inducted into this year's BHS Athletics Hall of Fame class include Mati Mendezabal, volleyball, Roy Estevan, football, and Mark Hardison, football, basketball, and track. A group of 9 students led by Madison Thomas Ferguson and Jessica Santos are planning a panel of role models in science careers to share their personal stories and journeys about their passion for science. Their goal is to provide their peers with opportunities to learn directly from STEM professionals, to gain interests which can support them in finding their niche career. Miss Record and Dr. Khan presented at the NSTA National Conference in Atlanta, Georgia, held recently on March 22nd through the 25th. They presented 3 sessions of the STEM Career Engagement Guides that they co-authored, which were published by the National Network of State Teachers of the Year. A team of 7 BHS students traveled to Southern Connecticut State University on Thursday, March 16th, and spent hours working together to solve undergraduate level mathematic puzzles in fields like graph theory, and more, while competing in a field of 33 teams from across the state of Connecticut. Sophia Calzone, Jocelyn Ciotti, Riley Cook Jimenez, Jacob Greenberger, Paige Dockers, Wisdom Nawazi, and Dominic Puzo each represented BHS. This was the largest competitive field since Southern Connecticut State University began running the competition. The class of 2023 prom theme is Met Gala, which is a popular event where celebrities dress up and walk the red carpet. Thank you for your time and have a nice rest of your evening.
Thank you, as always, ladies, and if you'd like to scoot out, you're more than welcome to. All of you, of course. You can stay. Fine. It's fine. We're going to move on to our presentations, and I believe we will be having a Parents' Place presentation. Dr. Sunday?
Yes, indeed, indeed. I believe we're going to pull up some technology. Thank you, Mr. Rivers. Really excited about this presentation. Earlier this month, a few of us were able to attend an event that was hosted at Parents' Place, an advocacy event. And you know, one of the things that was very, very compelling, including all the information we got, was the impact. I found it to be a learning experience, and to hear the emotional stories of how Parents' Place has impacted so many different families, matched with some of the information we received from an advocacy standpoint, is a call to action that we all need to pay attention to. So without further ado, Ms. Joy.
Good evening. Thank you very much for inviting us to come and speak about Parents' Place and share an abridged version of what we shared on our Advocacy Day. Stratford Parents' Place is Stratford's Family Resource Center. We focus on prevention, intervention, and education for all Stratford families. My name is Amanda Joy. I am the site coordinator for Parents' Place. Our staff includes Susan Schmidt, who's our program administrator, and Migda Carrero, our parent educator, Sarah North, our Parents' Place staff and Parent C coordinator, and Tasha Savario, our parent educator assistant. So we currently have almost 300 registered participants and growing. We have registered, that's not including 3 families we've actually registered this week. Our parent and child activity groups have 60 families enrolled in them right now, and our enrichment classes have 32 families. We also provide adult education opportunities for both parents and for Stratford educators. So we're currently in our 10th cohort of Parent C, which is very exciting. We've had 160 parents complete that program. For those of you who are not familiar with that, that's a leadership course for parents that learn advocacy and how to be a leader within our education community. We also do other workshops, including Raising Highly Capable Kids, which is new to us this year, focusing on the 40 developmental assets. And for educators, we partner with all of the family child care providers and the central-based child care providers in the town of Stratford. So our umbrella is support for mental health and well-being. That is everything that we do encompasses that kind of topic. Underneath that, you can see our parent-child activity groups are one of the biggest things we do, because when families come in and they're in person, they're able to get both parent education and learn how to provide quality educational experiences for their children. Underneath that also, we a little bit more of an intensive program would be our home visiting. So families get that intensive individualized support for both their mental health and their children's development. And then when we get into the educational experiences that we provide, again, we work with parents and educators on doing screenings, understanding their child's development, getting them the resources if referrals are needed, and making sure that all children have access to quality educational experiences, both at home and at school. one of the awesome things about Parents Place is we have the opportunity to do some partnering with the public schools and also out in the community. So we've been able to collaborate with just a few of the programs you see here. We're so grateful for the support that we get from places like the Baldwin Center and the health department, and we're able to connect with those families. And then we can connect those families with resources like Sterling House, Read to Grow, and the YMCA. We also do advocacy work for anything that affects our families. And so our partnering with the Board of Education is an ongoing, increasing process for us. So we have been able to develop these beneficial relationships with secondary families, which was something that we've always wanted to work a little bit more towards with our partnerships with the Family and Community Engagement Specialist, Melissa Redding, and Continuing Education. And we receive referrals from early learning services, school readiness, and the school social workers. So any of their families that they feel need a little bit more support, we are already part of the public school system. It's a nice, easy referral over to us. And we can work closely on the development of other much needed services, such as a welcome center and other things in the district. So as Dr. Sunday mentioned, one of these amazing things that we've been able to collect is some really powerful testimonies from our families. And I didn't want to take up your time because we could share videos and letters for hours of our families. So we just pulled out a couple of quotes from some amazing testimonies from the event and also from some letters that we've gotten. So Kate LaPietra, who is a small business owner and a parent of 3, shared with us, the pandemic was really, really tough. But when we were able to come back to Stratford Parents Place and bring my 3rd child here, it was so healing for me. Tanya Barnes, a Parent C graduate, said, Parent C was also an excellent program where I learned many skills which I've applied throughout my children's elementary school career. This program has engaged parents as leaders and their children who will be our future leaders. And Nigel Walker, who is a full-time student and parent of 4 and is putting herself out there as a full-time Parents Place advocate, shared a really personal story about her background and told us, I've never done that, to be honest with you, just hung out with people different from me. Stratford Parents Place surpasses color, gender, and economical status. I think I'm a better parent because of the great place called Parents Place. And if anyone's interested in more testimonies, you just reach out to us. So what we shared at our advocacy event is our main focus right now is an increase in funding. The Stratford Parents Place is a member of the Family Resource Center Alliance of Connecticut. There are 57 family resource centers in public schools across the state of Connecticut, and they are all fully grant funded. FRCs have not received a notable increase in funding from the state since 1997. In fact, our current state funding has decreased. And as everyone knows, inflation and costs continue to increase every year. Due to the lack of funding, we know that next year, some programs will have to be modified or cut. So the stats that you saw in the beginning of how many families we serve, that's something that we're trying really hard not to have to affect. So we collaborate with our legislators, we attend state meetings, and we're advocating for additional funding and resources. Despite these obstacles, we will continue to serve. We will not fail the families who need support from us. And we just wanted to share with you a little bit about the couple advocacy events that we had recently. So our Parents, Partners, and Pastries advocacy event at Parents Place was wonderful. It was a nice intimate setting. People got to come and see our program and hear a little bit about what we do. We also went up to the state just last week to the Capitol with all of the family resource centers in Connecticut and spoke with many legislators, some of whom had never heard of their family resource centers, and some who posed us some very good, challenging questions. But they pretty much unanimously understood and respected the ask that we're bringing to them. So, to sum up, right now it's imperative that we partner together for the health of our children, our families, and our community. Our FRC Alliance is remaining FRC strong. We are family strong, we are community strong, We are FRC strong.
Well, first of all, thank you, and I can personally testify how important the Stratford Parents Place has been to me. I'm a graduate of Parent C, and also when my littles were really little, I loved bringing them there and seeing my parents, and it's an amazing place. So, does anybody have any questions for Ms. Short?
Just a comment.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think the idea of a welcoming center would be really nice. I know there have been talks over the years of having welcoming centers at each school, but that might not be feasible. But having a central welcoming center for our school family population, I think would be really nice if it could happen.
That would be nice.
I just too would attest to attending the Stratford Parents Place as a mom, not really knowing what to do or who to hang out with because your kids are so little and keeping you isolated. And it's such an asset to our community. So thank you very, very much for being here and sharing it with everyone else.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, post-pandemic, one of the big things that we're finding is even more families are isolated.
Mhm.
Being a parent is isolating.
Mhm.
And coming out of the pandemic has been isolating for people. So we love, being able to be a point where people can connect and get resources.
Amazing. And thank you for,
Question?
no, but thank you for offering the tips on what we can do as a board and hopefully what our community can do to
Yes,
support
and if
you.
anyone has any questions or wants any further information, please reach out.
You bet.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Love it. I will pass it off to Dr. Sunday again.
Thank you for that, Mrs. Joy. It's my pleasure to introduce the newest inductee to the National Teachers Hall of Fame on March 16th. Vanell did an excellent job of creating a surprise event for our very own Kristen Record in front of 100 people, and I think for me, most notably, what was pretty neat was getting a chance to talk to your family about you and learn quite a bit about you. I think it's important that we certainly do this recognition, but I think it's important for our stakeholders to understand the gravity behind this. In Connecticut alone, there's approximately 45,000 teachers. So to be one of 5, and Connecticut is a small state, to be one of 5 in the country when you consider all 50 states is a tremendous accomplishment. A tremendous accomplishment. And for those of you who know Kristen Record, she's been with Stratford Public Schools for 23 years. 23 years. It was incredible to watch your students sharing this experience with you. It was incredible to watch your colleagues. You had a friend drive from New Jersey, is my understanding. This is a recognition well deserved. Thank you for carrying the banner for us here in Stratford. Thank you for advocating for the profession. Thank you for taking care of children. And on behalf of the Board of Education, we have a small token to show our appreciation for who you are to us.
You did it!
Congratulations.
We did it. We did it.
There's some flowers for you.
We'll pretend that's Vanilla Blue, Dr.
Oh my gosh.
Half my closet is vanilla blue. It's everybody else. What's the other? I hope so.
Dr. Sunday asked if I wanted to say a few words, and really I just want to highlight 2 quick things. One, to say thank you, because I have made Stratford Public Schools my professional home for 23 years, and I don't see that ending anytime in the near future. It was really special. It was very special of me to get to experience that surprise, yes, with my family. Dr. Sunday alluded to the fact that I have a family of educators. Both of my parents were public school teachers, and my dad taught high school physics for over 40 years. My mother was an elementary school teacher and then later middle school math and science teacher for 31 years. So It's it's in my blood. My brother teaches high school physics also. So dad, high school physics teacher, me, high school physics teacher, younger brother, high school physics. He married someone who became an English teacher, so we're all in as a family in public education. And I grew up with surrounded by amazing examples of teachers both in my house and in the public school that I went to, and that's what I sought out always in my career. And I said this at my surprise announcement, but that I so distinctly remember coming down to Fairfield County when I was interviewing 23 plus years ago. And this was the place that felt real. This was the place that felt like home, and this was the place that felt right. And I have felt that way ever since. And what made that day at Bunnell really special was the fact that, I don't know, Dr. Graff, how you did it, but you got every single one of my kids in that library. And that was amazing, because they are what makes my professional life so happy, and they are what keeps me so attached and so in love with this community. So thank you very much to the Stratford Public Schools, to the Stratford community, my former colleagues, my current colleagues. I wouldn't be here if it were not for the fact that I've always been surrounded by excellence. So thank you to everyone.
Congratulations, Mrs. Record. What people don't know is on the day of that event, there was a giant cake with her face on it. And also, she was very well composed here. On the day of the event, I had a side conversation with my field.
Mike lost the bet.
Exactly. Mike lost the bet whether or not she would burst into tears. And the moment she walked through those doors at the media center, the library, she was just overwhelmed with emotion. Much deserved love and emotion. Again, congratulations.
Thank you.
And one more, you got one more presentation?
One more. This is for the people who were sitting behind this bench. So March is Board Member Appreciation Month, and I think for our stakeholders, most people don't understand the volume of work that goes into being leaders who help shape the direction for the district, particularly a district as large and as complex as ours. So this month, we have a small token from the district administration, our teachers and our staff and our families, to demonstrate our appreciation for everything that you do, the hours you commit.
It's glorious. Zoom in on that.
It's a small token.
I love it.
But it's a functional token. I think particularly this time of the year, you spend so many hours around the obvious priorities that we have as a district. So on behalf of everybody, every student who walks into our buildings every day, every teacher who walks into our buildings, every family that partners with us, every community member that partners with us, thank you for everything you do for Stratford. Can you get a group picture? Let's do it. Leave the mugs.
I'm so excited. You have no idea. That's what I wanted. Sadly, it's true.
Oh, you don't want us to?
I don't want you.
Okay. I think I'm gonna other
So
side
match?
of you.
We're twinning.
Twinning. Right in the middle, yes. Mm-hmm.
You guys make them like I you. Okay.
Not in the middle. Was it not in the middle?
You want the tall guy in the middle? All right.
Very
Thank you.
We will move on to our public forum session. We do have two speakers tonight. When you go up to the podium, please state your name and address, unless you are a student, and then just state your name. And our first speaker tonight is Ms. Howell.
She's gonna take the mic down.
Yeah, so she can. Not excited.
4th grade at Wilcoxon Elementary School. We need more social workers and school psychologists and people like that because there are a lot of kids who are sad and need to talk to an adult. Kids need to talk about how they're feeling. Some kids have really hard lives and worry a lot and want to talk to someone at school. Kids who get the school social workers time are only the kids who get into fights. We need them to talk about personal stuff. School social workers have to prioritize the kids who get into fights to keep people's bodies safe. We need to keep people's hearts safe too. I have friends who are supposed to see the school social worker twice a week, but they don't get to see him because Miss Burgess and Miss Serenich are always with the kids who in fights. We have grown-ups who walk around the cafeteria every day who are supposed to stop fights, but they don't. There are fights every day at my school and the principal have to come to the cafeteria. People who are supposed to stop the fights don't send kids out of the cafeteria, so the fights still happen. If we didn't have fights, Miss Weatherly could be involved in good things that are happening at the school. Miss Burgess and Miss Serenich could be open for the kids who need to talk. I get so nervous that I get sick, and when I want to talk to Miss Burgess, I've only done it about 3 times this year because she's always with the kids who fight. I think if we didn't have enough money for the social workers, there would be more fights and kids would never get to talk to them. The kids know we can't just go talk to them when we need to, and that makes us feel like we don't have people we can talk to at all for things that really bother us. This comes to the point that we feel like we have to be social workers for our friends, and we shouldn't have to do that. We should comfort our friends, but we're only kids.
Thank you, Miss Allie. Our next speaker this evening will be Christine DeRousseau. Did I do it?
Close.
Hi, my name's Christine DeRousseau, and I'm here to talk about the school.
Could you just state your address?
55 Early Ave in Stratford, Connecticut. And I'm here to talk about the schools in their districts. So I live on the Early Ave, like I mentioned, and my son is going to be starting kindergarten. And I sent out a waiver for him to go to Eli Whitney, and it kind of started off just for transportation. I work at Milestones in Milford, which is a private school, and I have to work from 8 to 3:30, so school starts a little bit later. So the waiver was geared to just for transportation for him to get to Eli Whitney every day safely. It got denied due to the numbers of students that's on that side of town, which I get it, but on my side of town, we only have one elementary school. I went to Center, which is no longer here, and there used to be Honey Spot, and then you had Johnson, so you were able to split up the students. Now on that side of town, you really only have Johnson. I don't count Lordship because they're kind of their own little island over there, so I feel like they're still not on our side of town. So I'm here today to say, like, what is the town gonna do to kind of spread that out? I really didn't know too much about Johnson, but now that I know he has to go there, I'm not hearing, great things. There's no homework, the classrooms are crowded, so I'm just here to say, going forward, if you're not gonna approve waivers, what's the next decision that you guys are gonna make? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that is it for public speakers this evening. Is that who does? No? Oh, she did say that's it. Okay. I thought you said not yet. Okay. Well, thank you for everybody who came out to speak tonight. I appreciate it. We're going to move on to our administrative executive report. Dr. Sunday, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to start by saying I appreciate our speakers. I think, listening to the parent, that level of advocacy, there's some things we have in motion. It will take some time because it involves acquisition of resources and some diligent planning. But also the young lady who spoke, there's a statement that really stood out to me, the need to keep people's hearts safe as well. And I think that's a prevailing discussion that I think it's important to fall in the ears, certainly of all of us behind the bench, but also in other parts of our communities. Just want to make a quick plug to our juniors at both high schools. Good luck tomorrow in the SAT. It's a big day for them. I know our schools have been working diligently all year to prepare them. We wish them the best of luck. Get a good night's sleep, come fully prepared, and knock it out of the park. Next, we're finalizing the district calendar. We will pin down our PLC days as well, and I know it was also quite important that we illustrate our conference days and open house days on the calendar as well. So we'll have that ready to go for April, and that will go out to our families early so they have their position to plan in advance. April vacation is about 2 weeks away. I know I've heard from a few people they're looking forward to it, and I think it's a much-deserved break. People have been working incredibly hard this year, so we're hopeful that people really take that time to disconnect and enjoy some time with family and friends. I do want to take some time to speak to one of the biggest projects we have most recently, which is our budget. Okay, I do want to take a moment to speak to that. So obviously, I can speak for many people in our school system and also in the community at large. By saying, we're disappointed in the proposed appropriation that was released on the 13th, okay? And I think disappointed is probably also putting it mildly. We subsequently analyzed what the appropriation would mean for the Board of Education and its work next year. And we computed things, and it's very clear, it's very transparent to us that we'll be underfunded going into next year. I drafted a letter with an analysis based on the questions I was receiving, the concerns I was receiving from family members, from staff members, certified, non-certified staff members, questions I was receiving from board members, questions I was receiving from cabinet members, and in some cases, leaders of our town. What is probably concerning about it is that what was appropriated, in our opinion, clearly misses the mark. Okay, it clearly misses the mark. But also what's potentially concerning about it is that it was misrepresented in the 3.09. Problematic again is the fact that last year, if your memories can rewind a little bit, we had some very complex challenges around our budget process last year with a gap that we had to be responsive to, approximately $2.5 million. This year, that number is 3.1 million. So it's a far more complex problem this year than it was even last year. But more than the number, I would want to bring our stakeholders and members of the board, whoever is listening, to the pain points of how this played out last year in May across the community, where we had to make some decisions and some choices in order to keep our professional workforce intact as much as possible. It resulted in us making a programmatic shift. This year, that rift between what was asked by this board and what was proposed is significantly bigger. And there are no new programs that we can move across the district. It simply just does not exist. It's my job to study this organization, this academic institution, and make a proposal that puts us in a position to run a high-end quality educational program in a successive year. If you had a chance to review the letter that I shared, we provided a computation analysis, and to our reader, we were clear that we're projecting about a $450 deficit per pupil. It's problematic when you think about resources, for those of you who understand budgeting and how school systems work. What can be problematic over the next year and a half is with the fiscal cliff on the horizon, and in a space where we absolutely are going to be required to reduce in future years, that per pupil expenditure over the next year and a half would likely decrease by more than $1,000. Probably closer to $1,300. So when we talk about underfunded, and I understand the rhetoric, I understand the narrative, but the one thing I think we can all agree on is that you can't argue with numbers. You can't, you just can't. And when you start to talk about numbers, there is an ethical responsibility as you understand numbers in the way it impacts children. I'll say this, and this speaks to, in part, to my disappointment, okay? When studied over time, the last few budget cycles, handful of years, to the trained eye, it would seem that there's been a deliberate intention to depreciate the quality of the educational programs and experiences we provide to Stratford children. We have an opportunity to reverse that trend. It's an opportunity that was met with a commitment from this board, from my administration, to do as much as we can to be responsive to some of the priorities of the town. And our commitment was to do an internal analysis in the way that we presented the most fiscally efficient budget that we could. And we were fortunate to do so in a way that the number that we asked for was by far the lowest in the region. We don't have any more programs to move. And next year, we have about 6,800 kids who will come to school. So yes, I think it's serendipitous is certainly not the right descriptive, but it's ironic to hear a young lady, a 9-year-old, speak about her experience in schools. And I think that if we continue to move in this direction where we continue to chip away, whether it's 25 people this year or 100 people over the last 3 years or 4 years, I think we're going to hear more 9-year-olds make statements like that. I think we're going to hear more parents have a right to complain about what their child's experience looks like. We have teachers who wake up every day and come to schools. They're teachers, they're not magicians, right? They're teachers, they're not magicians. This is Stratford Public Schools, not Hogwarts. I say that in jest, but it's true. People are working incredibly hard. And they're doing this on the heels of the pandemic where there's so much more to do. For those of you who've been educated for a long time, I think the narrative, the national narrative or national expectation of do more with less is something we've heard from the 80s, from the 90s, the 2000s. I can't stand in front of our staff and tell them to do more with less, not when we have improvement needs, not when I hear 9-year-olds talk about their experience in that way. And ironically enough, what that 9-year-old did was not really talk about just herself, she was advocating for her peers. And when you think about it, uniquely enough, Wilcoxon has more stability than some other spaces. So we have a lot of work to do. Now, fully conscious going into this, we felt it wasn't likely that we would receive a 3.9. But a 1.2 misses the mark. So as we go through the next several weeks and we meet with town leaders, I'm hopeful that there will be some kind of an amendment to what has been proposed as an appropriation to the Board of Education. Because what, in its current form, has been proposed is one of the lowest appropriations that the Board of Ed would receive in years. That's it for the superintendent's executive report.
Thank you, Dr. Sunday. Any questions for Dr. Sunday? Yes, sir.
So, I had sent you an email last week, which you responded to. There's a lot of detail in that, and we heard the young lady speak today about the fights in school and the discipline, and it seems to be an ongoing issue, and I know you went through other programs and things that are going on, but it doesn't seem like they're working, so I don't know how we move. There were the fights at Worcester, the fights at Flood. I've seen some of the videos of the fights at Worcester, and I saw teachers getting knocked down. I saw hallways full of kids, beating on each other. It seemed like anarchy. So it doesn't seem like what we're doing is working. So and the young lady here talked about her experience in an elementary school. So it seems system-wide, not necessarily just. So I don't know what we can do to change it. I know things are different, obviously, than you were in school when I was in school, and discipline and respect for our elders is not what it used to be, but, so what do we do?
Yeah, no, I'd start with a couple of things. Number one, I would think you are sensationalizing things far more than it actually is. I would actually argue with you, or make the argument that our data would suggest that things look different. I think over the last 3.5 weeks, things have been quite turbulent, most notably with our middle schools. But if you recall, over the last 2 years, I've shared that the most turbulent demographic developmental group for us in our district has been the middle schools, right? If you also rewind to the proposal, I did have a response, which right now it's in a completely static position, right? But this is the reality of things, okay? It's not, and it's not going to go away, right? One of the things that I've shared publicly to the board, to our families, our town liaisons, and town leaders is our objective, ironically enough, we can't stop fights. Our job is to decrease the volume or the frequency of how often they happen, okay? The altercation that you are citing, because I saw that video as well and I had a whole team deployed to respond to support the school. The altercation that you're citing was an altercation between two 12-year-old girls, right?
There's more than one on the video. There's more than one
If
fight.
we're talking about the video,
There were 3 videos of fights.
Where are you seeing videos? I'm sorry, I have to interject. Where are you seeing videos?
And they were posted somewhere. Somebody showed me videos.
Like
of fights.
from the closed circuit television and or whatever from the.
No, there were kids who recorded them.
so I would actually, I would push back on that, because again, I think that's likely fabricated. You said 3 different fights, and whenever there's a fight, I speak directly to our principals. So it's possible that these things may be happening and they don't reach the attention of our principals. But anything that gets to our principal's desk, they notify me.
I promise those videos exist because I have them on my phone.
I'm not disagreeing with that, okay?
And I'm not
But what I also just
sensationalizing it.
shared was if they got to our school leaders, then it's likely it would get to me. What I'm saying is, if you have videos on your phone because you have access to social media or somebody sent them to you, my first question would be whether or not they got to school leaders.
But they were raucous, hallway filling, knocking down teachers in the midst of the fight. So to say something to that level didn't get to the teachers or to the administration is even more scary.
No, it's scary the way you're sensationalizing.
I'm not
Because-
sensationalizing. I'm just
I'll-
commenting on what I visited.
Well, I'll share this with you.
You said
Okay?
you said there was only one fight at Flood. There were 6, and I saw the videos and talked to the police on that issue, who said there were 6.
With all due respect,
So
okay? With
I'm not
all due-
sensationalizing.
With all due respect, I'll share this right now, okay? Because you are sensationalizing because you stand behind the microphone. If there were issues with teachers being knocked over, there are 2 individuals in this room who would pick up the phone or email me immediately. 2 individuals. I would know about it immediately. Beyond that, whenever any of these, to your point about these ruckus events, whenever these things happen, I deploy an entire team who conducts a full investigation, okay? On top of that, if you're telling me that police are sharing this information with you, my question would be, when we have SROs in our secondary schools, why they are not giving that information to us? So similar.
You gotta ask them, not me.
No, these are
You're
ethical
asking the
people
wrong
who are
person.
committed to their work, okay? So if you would look or aim to sensationalize it, you have to be able to speak about it here.
I'm not sensationalizing.
Nah, so listen, where I'm from, there's so many different ways to characterize that. You can't put a flamethrower on the table and walk away from it.
Well, we can talk about what the young lady said here about fights every day. Was she sensationalizing too?
I don't think she was sensationalizing,
Okay.
but what was she talking about?
Fights every day.
She was talking about staffing. She was talking about staffing.
She was talking about
So they
fights
can
every day.
respond to some of the impulse issues that our children deal with.
Actually, what I heard was the staff was addressing the impulse issues, so the other kids couldn't get hurt.
What you
But
heard
she said it,
was
not
her
me.
Can I just
saying,
interrupt for a second?
what you heard was her saying that they don't have enough staffing to deal with all the
That's not what I
children
heard.
who have these impulse challenges.
All right, Ms. Vidal.
Regardless if there's 1 fight, 6 fights, 100 fights, it doesn't matter. What's being done in the schools matter. What happens to those students? Are they put right back in a classroom? Are they sent home? Are their parents called? something.
Yes. So there's a protocol, it's called due process, okay? So all administrations will investigate the entire situation, right? The first thing that they're slated to do is contain the crisis. So if there's a fight, separate the kids, have the kids evaluated by nurses. After exercising a due process investigation to get both sides of the story to understand what the root cause was. The example that you're citing at Flood were two 12-year-old girls who just simply did not like each other. That's simply what it was. And it was propagated through social media. After they investigate that, they bring family members in, okay? From there, they issue all consequences appropriately, okay? Now, in the conversation and the email exchange that I received from Mr. Henrik, one of the things that he shared with me was that there's this narrative that kids are not being disciplined. And I asked that question. I asked that question because I've had a conversation with SEA leaders, and I've also point blank asked that question of our principals, right? And in your email, Ms. Bedell, you shared with me that people are reporting to you that school leaders are not issuing consequences because they're concerned, or teachers are not also administering management in the classroom because they're afraid for their jobs, right? That was the narrative that you shared.
Part of it?
I have been very explicit about talking to our leaders, our association leaders. I've been very explicit about speaking with our principals, correct? I have been very clear about my position, because part of this narrative was whether or not there has been a historical expectation that kids should not be disciplined. I was a former principal at one of the most turbulent schools in the state. My position is I firmly believe in discipline, but you have to follow the right channels, right? You have to exercise due process like it is anywhere else, in any other space of government, and we have to avoid marginalizing children. You avoid marginalizing children if you follow due process. I have been very clear with that for principals. And there's been times where I've flat out overturned a principal decision. That is not a practice that I want to engage in. But at the same time, I have confidence in our principals' ability to manage their schools. And if they have challenges that are beyond the scope of their capacity, then it's our job here to provide them with the resources so they can continue to do the work, including suspending children. The type of cases that rise to my level are cases that are high profile in nature, that may oftentimes involve a police officer, or expellable in nature. Now, conflicting, because this is the narrative that is apparently streaming through our communities, why are kids not suspended? I can look at my school administrators and tell them to go ahead and suspend kids. I can. I don't have a problem doing that. As a matter of fact, I put that in a memorandum and I explicitly told them, issue our disciplines, okay, accordingly after you've gone through the process of investigating cases. I've said that to them. But conversely, when those kids come back to school, they have to learn. And I'll ask that question about what's that child's progress. So what's their response? I think I would like to hear ideas.
What's their response when they come back to school? How do they learn?
What's the response from when we have kids who are chronically suspended, but they are now required to come back to school?
We have that new program.
Depends on the situation, but there's a lot of programs that deal with troubled students. There are social workers, there are psychologists, there are
Child
people
just said that we don't have enough social workers.
Okay, maybe we don't have enough there.
Well,
We have lots in the district. Appropriating resources in the areas would be
I would argue that. I mean, I would argue that we can pull
some from others.
mental health
Yeah.
resources and divert them. I would also like to put on the table that perhaps we need to reevaluate and redistribute our cell phone policy, because I think that certainly plays a role in some of the issues that we're facing.
I also perhaps would like to close on this piece, okay? Because we can suspend children, okay? We can, and I've been clear about that. But the other piece now is that there is direct implications of what suspensions look like for children, particularly children who do not have supervision at home, okay? Now, there's research that says that 85% of juvenile crime happens when? During school hours. 85% of juvenile crime happens during school hours. So if they're not in school, particularly for kids who are repetitively suspended, who when they come back, they realize they're credit deficient. They're likely not to come back to school because there's no point in coming to school, because it's impossible for them to move on to the next grade or graduate. And I can guarantee you, they're not just sitting on the couch at home. So there has to be a delicate balance about how we manage schools, about how we make sure kids feel connected, about how we communicate behavioral expectations, about how we get kids to treat each other and how we get kids to treat our teachers. But there's also resources that have to go a long way in making sure that that dynamic works. So you're asking the right questions, but as I said earlier when we were talking about the budget, the people who are in the buildings are not magicians. And I said this at town liaison meeting, I wish I had the resources to make sure I can put one adult with every child who makes a poor decision. But the fact of the matter is, every time we sit behind this bench for the last couple of years in the spring, we keep having conversations about removing adults from spaces where they can potentially help shape how a kid makes decisions. That's the reality of things. That is the reality of things. So we can't sit here. It's not enough for you to put something hard on the table and say, you go take care of it. I'm an educator with an enterprise of about 7,000 children. There are 13 principals with buildings of about 550 kids apiece. And at the high school level, 1,000 people. It's like asking our nurses at the high school, who is one for 1,100 kids, why can't you take care of 350 kids with medical issues? It's 350 kids and it's one person. So we can have this conversation, and if it's intended to make claim that people are not doing enough, then I would invite anybody to come in and be a substitute for a day in a classroom.
Ms. Keeping.
Thank you. Indulge me a couple of things. First, Mr. Hendrick's comment, go ask the SROs. We are funding those positions, so I do think you bringing something like that to Dr. Sunday to be like, I'm hearing from town police, not our SROs, like look into this, right? Like we have to make sure that these positions that we're funding are effective, not just, well, I don't know, right? That's concerning to me, like if town police is giving information and our SROs that we have in place aren't even aware of the situation. I did want to propose something because when, just who I am as a person, right? Like when I see there's an issue, I look at how did I contribute to the issue, or what can I do personally to help? Being on the policy committee, I've been thinking about this because I do also have children in the school system and experience certain things. And I wanted to see how you guys feel about possibly, maybe through the policy committee, develop sort of a set of behavior standards across the district. Not per school, like across the district. It could be at different levels, right? Where some modifications for the higher, for high school versus the elementary. And because what I'm experiencing, and I've heard from other families, there's some lack of accountability, and the children are also feeling where, well, I was offended as a child, I experienced something, but I did not see where the person who violated me experienced any consequences. Right? And children, you're raising your child to understand that there are consequences to certain behavior, and then you're sending them to school and they're not seeing it. And I understand some of the reasons why they're not seeing that, because they're trying to protect each child and not have, whatever happened to them be public, right? I get that piece. But I also have to think about the fact that everybody's being raised differently in their households. So you're bringing all of that into a pretty large district. We need to have some standards to say, once you come through these doors, this is what's expected of you. The teachers need to know, like, if this child does X, Y, Z, here are the consequences. The principals, everybody needs to be on the same page, right? And if the teachers are advising children to say, hey, if you don't behave, this is what's going to happen. Right now, they don't have that. So I'm proposing that we come together and put something in place as a board, doing our part in helping to solve some of this. It may not end fights, right? We've all been in school fights, you know, in our days. That's not going away,
I don't,
right?
I don't take you
Yeah.
for somebody who's been in a
Just
fight.
me, every day.
Verbal, but not physical. I'll say this.
But-
It's a brilliant recommendation, and to be honest with you, because of the turbulent spike of, certainly over the last 3 weeks, we've actually initiated that process, because you're absolutely right, it looked different across 13 buildings. So Ms. Borges, Dr. Daniels, our principals are part of the conversation, and they're doing some surface level vetting out right now, because we're looking to norm the process, right? Particularly, we call that a discipline matrix or a conduct matrix. So that's work that we initiated about 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of research to make sure that it's responsive in a way. It accomplishes, it's almost similar to the way you design policy, right? So you design it for a specific end, and you try to capture every aspect of it so things don't fall through the cracks. But we're also conscious to make sure that when it's written, okay, it does not unintentionally marginalize.
Absolutely, and I'm very aware of that, right? I'm very mindful of that, but I do really think it should be under our policy, our list of policies. So the work that, you know, you said your cabinet members are working on, yes, that can come up, but it should be brought to the policy committee. We should look at some ideas as well and put our brains together and put something effective in place. I don't think it should be over here and where does it live, who, like, it should be on our website, under our policy, this is it. Families know this is it.
And
Like,
can we ensure that there's a peer-to-peer review process included in it and things that we've talked about in the past?
I think similar to other policies where the administration of it, right, is not necessarily what we do, even though we get to review that piece. We can have input there, but I want to make sure that we have all these sort of items laid out clearly, like very clearly for everyone to understand.
Right.
And it holds everyone accountable, because if my child does something wrong to another person's child, they can see, well, yeah, your child was wrong and this is a consequence. That right now, it's a little bit like nobody understands what's going on.
I think that's a slippery slope. Okay, I think that's a slippery slope, and I'll explain why. And you know, as you're talking, I think I have a pretty good understanding of what you're trying to accomplish, right? So you're trying to make sure that there's a standard in practice, okay? But oftentimes when you see conduct policies that are shaped by the board, it's typically suspension and expulsion policies more than administrative discipline. So code of conducts are typically designed by administrators, oftentimes in conversation and consultation with their teachers. It becomes a full-blown administrative responsibility, because outside of perhaps a teacher detention, the only people who are statutorily positioned to issue a consequence is an assistant principal or principal. Even deans, typically they process things, but it still has to be approved by the administrator. And the reason why that is because in some cases you have to take the entire continuum of a kid's situation and context. It may not fit seamlessly into the matrix that's adopted by the board. For example, if there's a child with an IEP, it doesn't matter what, right? But that matrix would be a lockstep, right? It would be a lockstep, right?
Well, I think what I'm thinking, it doesn't have to include every consequence, right? Because that some power has to remain in the administrator's control. But expectations, like here are our expectations when you're in our schools.
Like a classroom charter, but for the district.
Exactly, you know, like something along those lines. There are other districts that have similar things in place, like I've reviewed. Like I said, it's been on my mind. I've looked at some stuff, and I do think we can put our collective minds together and come up with something that actually helps to ease some of the burden.
That's great. I appreciate your input, and your input, and I think this has been a robust discussion and certainly an important topic that we'll continue to check in on. Yes, sir.
And I could just for the record, I don't think the suspensions really are the answer. I don't think they work, to your point. I don't think that's the answer. But I don't know what the answer is. I wasn't hired to be the superintendent. So I can give you suggestions, but I'm not the expert by any means.
So-
And I'm not saying by any means that our staff are not doing their fair share of the work. Because I know, and I saw the teacher get knocked out. I know they were trying to stop it. I saw what happened, and I know they're in it. And I know the people in this room who are part of the staff, and I know that they're working hard and they're looking for solutions. But you know, it needs to be a comprehensive plan, and it needs to come from the top down.
So, you know, one of the challenges of our district is structures and processes were not cogent, okay, by and large, okay? And I would go as far as actually, you know, we've talked about this, right? And whenever you talk about implementing structures and processes, you know, policy is an avenue to go about doing that, okay? But policy is only as good as to the extent that somebody can implement it effectively, right? So that's been part of it. I think when we continue to think about some of the challenges that we have, and when we talk about creating structures, it's an iterative process that has to fall into place over time, right? Those structures start to move professional practice and habits. But truthfully, you can have all the structures in place. If it's not adequately resourced, then the structures will be null and void. It will crumble. For anybody who understands design principles, okay, there are anchor points. So I appreciate, you know, I appreciate your response on, you know, I'm not the expert, right? But I don't think a lot of people are the experts. These are children, and in many cases, children are very unpredictable. I got a 12-week-old. I have no idea what that kid is doing 1 hour to the next, okay? But we have to be able to set the conditions, set the expectations, hold the kids accountable, right? And that's part of structure, okay? That's part of structure. So we need to continue to have these conversations, but I'll say this 1,000 times over to the point, to the trained eye. If you look at how we've systematically trimmed away at this organization, and we're looking at the same thing. So in a couple of weeks, we're realistically looking at trimming away personnel. And on top of personnel, we're looking at trimming at resources, at materials. These are all things that completely trim down the infrastructure of the school system and impacts the quality of the educational program we can offer to 7,000 children. This is not a question of whether or not, you know, there's a tension between the town and the Board of Education, or whether there's a tension between the superintendent or X, Y, and Z. There are kids who are going to walk into our buildings come September 1st. And we're going to have these conversations, we're having these conversations now, and it's the end of March. These conversations could have started in September. And it can happen every month. So we have to make a decision here. And whether it's the difference between having these kinds of conversations on a repetitive basis, or whether it's funding the board, those are real conversations. One of the questions you asked, if I recall correctly, last year, you asked a question about chronic absenteeism.
That's on my list for questions later.
Mr. Herrick, I remember everything you say. Sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning. But you asked that question, right? For a child who has that experience, what motivation do they have to come to school the next day? That's a 9-year-old. She'll go to school because her parents will tell her to go. A 16-and-a-half-year-old who walks to school may choose not to go. It's a legitimate thing. So it's more than just, you can't just sit here and pontificate and say, you know, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong, right? My high school coach used to always say, if you point a finger, it's 3 pointing back at us. What are we going to do about it, right? It's really the conversation. It takes more than people in this room. We can't keep having budget cycles like this year after year. Last year was a difficult spring. But the sad part of what was difficult about it last year is I had a teacher who was impacted say to me, you know what, Dr. Sunday? This happens every year. that's literally, and I see my colleagues nodding their head. At some point, it has to change. It has to change.
Ms. Vidal?
I was just gonna say, going back to the point at which students have entered into fights, or we need more resources, or we need to entice them to come back to school, a matrix, a conduct matrix, a behavior matrix, something along those lines entices them not to do it in the first place. So I think there's something to be said about holding the students more accountable in the first place instead of letting it get to that point.
I agree.
And let's also focus on improving the climate of our schools, which can be done by being properly funded, because if we make our schools a positive, wonderful, happy place to walk into, then I think we'll find happier students and staff. I'm all about it. So, thanks for that conversation, guys. Any other questions on an unrelated topic for Dr. Sunday? Spectacular, thank you. We'll move on to Ms. Mangini's Chief Operating Officer's report.
Sure, thank you. Actually, my report this evening is a little bit different because my focus is simply on thank yous. So I would first like to take this opportunity to thank my business office staff, or the business office staff under Susan Nicholson's leadership. They have done a whole lot since January 1st, and I think sometimes we forget just how much comes out of that office. They actually had to get all the W-2s, 1099s, and 1095s out in a timely manner, which I know doesn't sound like much, but with over 1,000 employees, plus all our substitutes, plus all the employees that sadly have come and gone since the start of the fiscal year, but also don't forget this was the entire calendar year. It was a Herculean task, and they did a tremendous job. During that same time period, they also managed to complete the retroactive payment for our custodians, which was an 18-month calculation. And again, they got all of that done with smiles on their face, maybe a little bit of stress, and I tried to bring them some goodies once in a while in the morning to make it a little bit more bearable. But nevertheless, they are an incredibly hardworking, dedicated group of employees. And I really felt they were just worth acknowledging here this evening, and I'm really grateful to be working alongside of them. And the second thing I would like to take the opportunity is to thank our board members for all your dedication to our students. Frankly, yes. As a former board member, I really do understand how many hours go into this position. We often forget that the board meetings are just a small portion of the time that you commit to the district and our students. You spend lots of time, I'm sure, attending various workshops, reviewing your meeting packets, or simply attending one of the many school activities that you are invited to. And we extend our most heartfelt thank you to all of you for the time and commitment that you provide to the Stratford Public Schools and to ensuring a really tremendous educational experience for our students. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mangini.
That's my report.
Excellent. Any questions for Ms. Mangini?
Who's gonna question that?
Yeah. Do you have? I know. Tell me more about how wonderful this is. Thank you, Ms. Mangini. We'll move on to Dr. Data and her teaching and learning report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And it's very difficult to follow Ms. Mangini after that. I was also going to extend my thanks as well. She did it very articulately. I want to thank her for expressing, I think, the way the whole cabinet feels. You know, we look to you for input, for your feedback, for your knowledge, and then about the community to help us do our job better. So we really appreciate the time that you give to us. So thank you. I'd also like to, I don't know, these high school students, they steal my thunder all the time. This time it was Yasmin, but I've talked to Sam Rosenberg, and at the next board meeting, we'd very much like to bring to you the team members who went to the Science Olympiad at UConn, because they stuck their toe in the water. This was the first time that they tried something, and it was an experience that they articulated very well, and I'd love to have them be able to share that with you. So You know, the only piece I'll add to it, so I don't take away the thunder and everything, and the beautiful pictures that I was sent about the day, was that they placed 32nd out of 37 teams for their first time, you know, so congratulations to them. The other thing I'd like to make you aware of is Go Baby Go is coming this week. This is a program that's designed to allow children with special needs to move independently by modifying toy ride-on cars that are both affordable and readily available. Actually, they're donated to this program. Participants who have been trained in our tech department engage in hands-on activities modifying a Fisher-Price wheels car for a disabled youngster. They've been trained by several individuals from Central Connecticut State University last year, and they're very excited to bring this to Stratford and engage in community efforts with this particular program. So tomorrow evening at Stratford High School, starting at 5:30, there will be 4 children and families that will be the recipients of the vehicles. And the goal is to work with occupational therapists in ensuring that it has been made, the vehicle has been made to fit the rider, and all components are safe and working properly so that the vehicle can be taken home. And I know that they've been working with Ms. Borges on that and her department and helping to support that. The other thing I just wanted to mention is on Wednesday, all of the admins in the district are going to come together for our monthly admin meeting. And through the efforts of Ms. Temple, we have a speaker this Wednesday. His name is Bruti Coppelli, and he's a highly regarded urban educator in New Jersey. He's been an educator for more than 20 years and distinguished himself as a master teacher and a transformational school leader. As an elementary teacher in New Jersey, he was named the East Orange School District and Essex County Public Schools Teacher of the Year and a finalist for New Jersey State Teacher of the Year. As a middle and high school principal, he led the turnaround effort of 4 different New Jersey urban schools, including the mighty Newark Tech, which went from a low-performing school in need of improvement to national recognition, which included U.S. News and World Report magazine recognizing it 3 times as one of America's best high schools. Coppelli is one of the most sought-after school leadership experts in North America. He's the author of 13 books, including ASCD bestsellers. This is one of them that our staff is reading. And I just know that everybody that has heard, I personally have not heard him speak, but I know everybody else that has really given him very high marks. So we're looking forward to welcoming him to Stratford on Wednesday.
Exciting. Thank you, Dr. Gana. I love the Go Baby Go program. That sounds so exciting. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Are there any questions for Dr. Gana?
Couple questions. So, chronic attendance. I had asked about that at the end of last year and hadn't received any information and didn't know if we track those numbers, you know, per school, per how many kids are in that. I don't know, and I think that's the term, chronic absenteeism, but what the number is that initiates that process at this time of the year. I know we're closer to the end of the year, so, but what number initiates that, and how many students we have in each school that are at that level, and how we're addressing that?
We have that. I thought maybe I had prepared something for you earlier, but I'll go back and check. But certainly I can give you an updated report.
Okay. And then the dual language program. I had asked a couple times just the scores to see how they the students in the dual language program compare to the students. I know, just for clarification, I know we did a presentation a while back, and that was more in reference to students of color, but I'm looking more for the dual language students in comparison to other students. That classroom model, whatever you call it, how they compare to the other students within our district.
So,
Sure.
Before
Before we get to that, the request for the chronic absenteeism data you asked for at the end of last year, we did provide that for last year, right? We did provide that. We can get that again, but for this year, if you're looking for that data, we can certainly aggregate that as well. But before we before I ask Ms. Massari to come up here and speak, and maybe speak to some of the performance data, perhaps I can maybe ask you, what's the interest with this subgroup of kids compared to other subgroups?
Well, it's a different model program, and then as we look at its success, or if we're paying twice as much for kids to get the same results as the other kids, then is the program successful? I'm just curious to know how it compares to the other students, so as we're looking at these budget issues and these budget items and this re-engineering, is it a...
So it is a budget question.
But we're not.
In
we're-
part,
Wait,
yes.
we're not paying twice as much.
I don't know what the number is.
Well, it's not.
I said, but most of our classes have 2 teachers,
I
but
think it's a fair question. I just wanted to know the root of that, and I'm going to ask, it's a research-based program. The design is a research-based program. There's an accreditation body, but Ms. Basari is an expert at this work, and she's created a signature program for us here in Stratford. I'd like to invite her to maybe speak to some of the numbers for our children.
Sure. How fortuitous.
So I don't have all of the data, but I can give you some. And I think I'm very proud of that data, so I'm happy to share that with you. In terms of the iReady Winter Diagnostic Dual Language Program, finished the 27% of students at grade level or above. And there were only 2 other schools that finished above us in that. For our iReady reading, and I'll give you that in a moment, I'll give you this. 40% of our students are at grade level or above, and 3 other schools finished above us in that. And we are 44% English learners. So we are really doing a very good job. I am proud of the students, I am proud of the teachers, I am proud of those families. Because when you think about the percentage, we're at 44%. I have 214 students in that program, 93 of them are L's. There are 6.5% and 5% of L's in those other 2 schools, and 6.5%, 5%, and 8% in the other 3 schools that I mentioned about reading. And I want to just make sure that there's an understanding that enrollment data was wrong. There are 40 students in the kindergarten class. There are 39 in grade 1. There are 38 in grade 2. There are 30 in grade 3. There are 36 classes in grade 4 and 31 in grade 5 for a total of 214 students. The lottery is next week, which should hopefully give us another 40 students, which would mean that this program is at 255 students. Is there any, I'm happy to give you some more, but I need to compile that.
I think, the base of the question is how are our kiddos doing compared to the rest of the population of our kiddos. And, that, was it 39% in math, or what was the number?
40%. Oh, I'm sorry, 27% in mathematics and 40% in reading.
Correct. So 40% in reading.
And I just want to interject, they also have a second language.
But if you remember back to our presentation in the fall now, what I'm actually quite impressed with is there's been growth across the system, because we reflect on our internal assessments at the mid-year point ahead. Our principals go through that process. So there's been growth across, but it's clear to us that this population of kiddos are accelerating for whatever reason in a faster way. When we presented the numbers in the fall, our math proficiency numbers were in the teens. So to hear 27%, right? And if you remember, our numbers in reading was 28%, if I recall correctly. It was 28%. So these numbers are at 40% halfway through the year. And I've shared this in email communication with the board. We're entering, assessment season across the district and across the state. And our conversations as school leaders over the recent weeks and recent month or so has been really trying to seize the moment here, because to look here, but now speak about data, right? All of our schools are up to the eyebrows in data at this point in time, and we've grown comprehensively. So as they continue to monitor student progress with internal assessments, our next task is to make sure that all the growth that we're seeing internally, we can transfer to some of the state assessments. And that's what we're really hoping to do. it actually kicks off tomorrow at Bunnell High School and Stratford High School with our juniors on that state team. So there's a lot more work to do, but we're happy with the progress we're seeing.
So if we could get a report maybe typed up, just so we can,
But in terms of what?
just the numbers, the data points.
Absolutely, I have that, I can send
Okay,
that,
sure.
I'll give that to Dr. Gate if she has it already.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for stepping in this. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
If I may just add that with regard to the enrollment report, it isn't wrong. What it is that the 2 classrooms that identify the dual language used to be the last 2. And I will make certain, perhaps when they got moved to Second Hill Lane, they got reversed
Or
orders.
bold
So
them or something.
we'll clarify that for
Thank
you
you.
so that they are the last
Thank
2.
you. Thank you
Just
very
want to make
much.
sure we're all on the same
Which ones
page.
are they now?
I'm not sure, but
Okay.
I can find a couple that add up, so I am going to clarify that, and I will get back to you so
Thank you,
that
Ms. Mangione.
they are where they're supposed
And
to
thank
be.
you, Ms. Nassar. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to add, because we don't get to see you very often, the pulse in the community is they are so very anxious for this lottery. We have families who are dire need to get their kids in, and after hearing a testimonial last week, I can understand why. A youngster helped his mother in a parking garage where there was no English-speaking parking attendants, and he fluently communicated in Spanish to help his mother. And that just blows me away. We're not a 2-language home, and I wish we were. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that information.
Thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you so much. Any other questions for Dr. Gata? Moving on to our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our March 1st, 2023 meeting and also for this month's personnel document.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Wiltsey. Second. Second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Any discussion? Seeing none, before we vote, I would like to note that I am not related to the person in the personnel report that shares my last name, just for transparency's sake.
Saw that.
Yeah, we are not related. So, seeing no further discussion, roll call vote, Mr. Henrik.
Yes.
Ms. Bedell.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian.
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey.
Yes.
Ms. Cupie.
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to items for action and discussion. We'll start off with our budget transfers, which have been forwarded to us with a favorable recommendation from the Finance Committee earlier this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 1, which is a proposed transfer to adjust accounts and cover transportation costs for displaced students under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act, and this budget transfer is in the amount of $46,875.62.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie,
Second.
second by Ms. Bedell. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Our second budget transfer, I will entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 2, which is to cover shortage and fuel absorption account line. And the total budget transfer amount is $160,000.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Henrik,
Second.
second by Mrs. Wiltsey. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. We're moving now, guys. Moving along to number 2, our proposed graduation date for 2023. I will entertain a motion
Sorry.
to approve the proposed graduation date for 2023 as June 12th,
So moved.
2023. So moved by Mrs. Wiltsey.
Second.
Second by Ms. Cupie. Any discussion?
I just
Yes,
have
ma'am.
one question, I think with the state guidelines of 180 days, that would not bring the seniors to 180 days because of the 2 snow days. Can we graduate them on June 12th?
It would. We have 182 days there, so that would actually be the 180th day. So the last day for all students will be the 14th.
Okay.
Even with the snow days?
No, I understand that our calendar was 182 days, but I thought
So
the
that
last
would
day
be
of school
178.
was to be June 14th, and now it's June 16th because of the 2 snow days.
No, that's not accurate. I'm gonna call on the board clerk. We did the computation. Can you provide an explanation?
I did go forward as Ellington legislation when they passed that you can set your firm graduation date. You can set a firm graduation date based on your original adopted calendar, as long as that day is the 180th day on the original calendar. Should it snow, you can still have graduation on that day.
That was that legislation was from 2019, I believe, yeah?
Posted, different places do have it posted on their website that way.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure we don't get to there and then, you know.
A bunch of illegitimate graduates.
No, not at all, it's accurate, it's
Kidding.
accurate, because
You're
we
not
had a
graduating.
similar, if you remember, I think we had 3 snow days last year, we had a similar conversation. So this year, we were carefully monitoring our snow days, and I think one of the discussions that we had here, and it was a pretty lively, good, productive discussion, was trying to make sure we position families to be able to schedule flights and hotels and all those different things. So right now, we're queued up and we're scheduled to go at Bunnell and Stratford High on June 12th.
Any further discussion?
So are we saying that because we have 182, the 14th being the last day, it still holds? We're not extending it 2 days because of the 2 snow days?
Correct.
I'm just saying, like,
Correct.
part of Lisa's question was last day of school.
That would still be 180
So
days.
it would still fall
but
into,
so
okay.
the last day of school remains.
Just making sure, because if that were
That's important. It's a
changed,
good tidbit.
then that 12 would have
Yeah.
changed. That's what I'm getting at. Okay.
Right. You'll find some districts build in 183, some districts actually go
Stratford typically
186.
182,
Right.
yeah.
182 standard.
Okay.
Okay, so I love it. Seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Cutie?
Yes.
Ms. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0, and so that everybody knows, the graduation date for Stratford High School and Bunnell High School will be Monday, I believe, right? Monday, June 12th, 2023. So excited. Okay, moving on to number 3, proposed policies. These are policies that are both up for second read and adoption status. And so I will entertain a motion to approve the second read and adoption status of policy number 3160, which is for line item transfers.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie.
Second.
Second by Ms. Bedell. Any discussion?
Yes, there is a typo in the version you received in your packet. It should be changed from 7,500 to 10,000 for the financial budget transfer policy. So if we can just amend to approve with that edit.
Would make a motion to amend.
Motion to amend, yeah.
I'll second
Mike
it.
needs a second.
Okay, a motion to amend by Ms. Cupie, seconded by Mr. Cupie, Mr.
So hold on, no.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, hold on. But I made the first motion. I
No,
can
you
amend it
can
as well?
still-
Okay, okay, continue.
So motion by Ms. Cupie, second by Mr. Henry, my
Yes.
apologies. All in favor of
The amendment.
the amendment?
Aye.
Against? Abstain? Okay.
And then we make a motion on the
That's right.
amended.
And so, I will entertain a motion to approve the policy as amended.
Yes, so moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie, second by Ms. Bedell. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Henry?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. It's getting late, guys, I'm getting punched in my apologies. Our second policy, I'll entertain a motion to approve the second read and adoption status for policy number 3542, which is the food service charging policy.
So moved.
Second.
So moved by Ms. Cupie, second by Ms. Bedell. Any discussion?
Changes?
No.
All right, great. Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Ms. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you for your work on that policy committee. Moving on to the curriculum portion of our meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the proposed biotech curriculum. It comes to us with a favorable recommendation from the curriculum committee.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Carol Fabian,
Second.
second by Ms. Cupie. Any discussion or explanation?
The biotech curriculum was first implemented this year. We have a partnership and collaboration with Jackson Laboratory. They have done a lot of donation of materials for our students, a lot of hands-on experience. They've also given our staff a chance to kind of learn and grow in what kinds of questions that might be asked of students, what kinds of skills they might have, what kind of opportunities that these skills will be able to be employable with. So this is just an expansion and like a re-engineering of adding more into this curriculum.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Anything to add? Great. Roll call vote. Ms. Cukie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to number 5. I will entertain a motion to approve the request for writing the macroeconomic curriculum. This comes to us also with a favorable recommendation from the curriculum committee.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Carol Fabian.
Second.
Second by Ms. Cupie. Discussion or explanation?
Sure. This is an AP macroeconomics course that we are hoping to implement. It is, the request was made to develop curriculum for AP macroeconomics. This is a one-semester introductory college course in macroeconomics that will explore the principles of economics that apply to an economic system as a whole. The rationale behind it is to help increase more AP options for our students to engage in.
Great. Further discussion, questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to number 6. I will entertain a motion to approve the request for writing the Allied Health Pathway Change curriculum.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Wiltsey, second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Any discussion or explanation?
Sure. The Allied Health Pathway Change. The CTE Foundations of Health Services, a request was made to develop the curriculum for the Foundations of Health Science 1 and 2. Both courses are a one-semester course. The State Department of Education revised several of the CTE pathways, including the Allied Health, and the completion of the Foundations of Health Science 1 and 2 courses will align our district program with the state revision.
Okay, super. Any other discussion or questions? We will have a roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion passes 7-0. You guys were busy this month. All right, we'll move on to number 7. I will entertain a motion to approve the capital improvement budget for the fiscal years 24 through 28. This comes to us with a favorable recommendation from the school planning committee.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie.
Second.
Second by Mr. Henrik. Any discussion?
Sure. So the committee did have a special meeting last week to review this before it came before you. There were a couple of changes made to it. I believe they're highlighted in your version. Number 1 being the repairing of Flood's auditorium ceiling. That in the plan was proposed for FY24 and FY25. During the planning committee, it was recommended that we push that out 1 fiscal year. The amount for each year was estimated $750,000, so $750 for 24 and $750 for fiscal 25. So now it's going to be 25 and 26 fiscals at that same level. During the same process, as we made that adjustment, the committee also looked at the window replacement project for Lordship Elementary, and that was originally proposed in the amount of $440,000 for FY26. Since we moved Flood out a little bit, the committee wanted to move this one up to FY24. And then the third change was the proposed plan that was presented to us had the auditorium seating for Flood and Worcester scheduled for repair and reupholstering beginning FY25 through FY27, and the committee recommended moving that up by 1 fiscal year. So those were the changes. Yeah.
Okay, so, just a couple comments, and I wasn't able to attend the meeting, I had a previous engagement, but, and I'm not opposed to sending exactly the way it's written, but I don't know that just keep in the back of your mind. I don't know how the council or the mayor will look at item number one, the Board of Ed's planning is reviewing school capacity and district boundaries. A professional study will guide this process. I don't know if they'll consider that a capital improvement plan. It's worth a shot. And Mr. Llewellyn, who also couldn't attend, had sent out an email. He suggested that some of these are in the works or in a different place in the town side, and some of those, speaking with Mr. Ruggiero, some of these are Board of Ed responsibilities, and some of these are town responsibilities inside the building, outside of the building. And it's good that they know what we're thinking, which I think this report reflects, but it might be good in the future to try and differentiate so it's easier for them to digest it, what's ours and what's theirs, obviously this is all things that we like, but what's ours and what's theirs, so they can maybe pull their stuff out or maybe readjust or re-engineer some of their planning.
And we did bring up during the meeting, kind of, okay, when we're looking at the version on the town side, does it include some of what we're proposing? And I know Rich explained that sometimes the town will ask him for a number for a particular project because the town is doing some and it, coincide with BOE needs, and so they'll just have like one line item. So we have to be mindful when we're looking at this versus the town version that some of our stuff might be folded into some of their line items too.
Yeah, so hopefully in the future, these planning, whoever's on the committee can get involved in the process a little bit earlier to hopefully facilitate some of it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Vidal?
Just a quick question, a follow-up to a question I had in another project a couple of months ago. There's a couple of expenses in here, including a boiler and a playground replacement for Honey Spot. Are we going to continue with that and have a plan in place at some point, or is there?
Yeah, the boiler definitely needs work.
It needs work.
There's no doubt about that.
I haven't heard of that actually going through yet, but that is part of the topic that I have with the town. Are we gonna replace the boiler? But the school also needs a lot of other help.
Well, that's why I'm asking about it, because it's not going to be in use by us as of the close of this year.
Correct.
So we do have a plan in place, and we are going to share that with the board before this year is over. Okay. The boiler is aged. We were there 2 weeks ago, and I had a chance to, connect with the custodian. They actually showed me the boiler. So it definitely is a good amount of work to do there. But to Mr. Ruggiero's point, there's a host of other things that we need to do.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be throwing money into a building that we weren't going to touch.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Absolutely. We have plans.
Exciting. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Henner?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. All right, moving on to number 8. We're going to read through these healthy food certifications. Ms. Mangini, before I start reading these novels, will you just give us a brief overview of what we are about to do?
I will. The healthy food certification submission that we're being asked to provide is a requirement to all public schools that participate in this National School Lunch Program. And actually, these motions are written by the state, and we are required word for word to have them in your minutes so that we are abiding by the program appropriately, and the board is sanctioning that, yes, they are in agreement.
Thank you much. All
Okay.
right, bear with me, guys. I will entertain a motion to approve, so we'll do 8A. I will entertain a motion to approve the healthy food certification to certify pursuant to section 20-215F, right? Is that?
215.
Well, okay, or 21.5 of the Connecticut General State Statutes. The Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempted from the Connecticut Nutrition Standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut Nutrition Standards during the period of July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all times and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or by non-school organizations and groups.
So moved.
Thank you. Second by Ms. Cupie, second by Ms. Carol Fabian. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. We can confirm that all of these guidelines are met in all of the schools, right? Like the vending, there's no vending machines, the school stores are in.
Yes, we can,
Yes.
and I
Okay.
assure you that
Just
our
making
friends
sure.
at Sodexo made certain that nothing is served to students in that period of time.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Welty?
Yes.
Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to 8B. I will entertain a motion to approve the Healthy Food Certification Exemption Statement. Oh, as, come on, guys, it's too late for me. I read the following way. The Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. An event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Cupie,
Second.
second by Ms. Fabian. Any discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Cupie.
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltsey.
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Ms. Bedell.
Sure.
Mr. Henry.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Mr. Henry. Chair votes yes. Motion passes 7-0. One more, y'all. I will entertain a motion to approve the Healthy Food Certification Beverage Exemption Statement, and it reads as such. The Board of Education will allow the sale to students of beverages not listed in Section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, the sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the beverages are not sold from a vending machine or a school store. Again, an event is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. The school day is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the official school day. Location means where the event is being held and must be the same place as the food sales.
So
Any
moved.
discussion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Weltsey?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
No. Yes, sorry.
Oh my God.
Later. A little bit.
Except last of fresh air.
Oh, wait.
Mr.
Yes.
Henry, chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. We did it, guys. We're a healthy community. All right, we will move on to tabled items. Is there anything anybody would like to remove?
Take it off.
Ms.
Good.
Bedell?
You got it.
Ms. Bedell would like to take residency off the table. She makes the motions.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Henrik. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Abstain? Super. It's off the table.
Just a quick question. From the time a case is, a potential case is reported
Mhm.
to the time a student is disenrolled, if it gets that far, how long does that usually take?
It depends. And every case is different. So whenever things are submitted, obviously, you know, our residency officer will go out as they come in. But we have to have a preponderance of the evidence that suggests to us that the family is not here. So that can include, you know, reviewing artifacts, that can include conversations with the family, that can include surveillance. So it does look different, but we are not in a position to submit a disenrollment query to a family until we have a preponderance of evidence that they don't reside in Stratford. So it depends.
And just a quick follow-up on that. If there is an appeal process that happens after a family is disenrolled, how long is there a timeline on that? Is there like, you have to have this complete within 3 weeks or?
Yeah, and that's what we're looking to schedule. So, I mean, part of my reports is, you know, February we had 4 disenrollments, in March we had 1. But right now we have 5 families who are trying to contest our findings. Okay, so we just have to get them scheduled and then ultimately make a determination based on the ability, because the burden of proof falls on the family.
And is there a timeline for scheduling those, or?
There is a timeline. I work with my executive assistant and residency officer to schedule those. We have to work with family schedules as well.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sunday, if I may, Chair. When you talk about the burden of proof is on the family, can you just give us an example of what that looks like?
Sure. They have to provide us with evidence that they live here. So whether it's substantiated utility bills or,
Well, I'm sorry, I probably asked incorrectly. They've done that when they're being investigated, but if they're to be found not residents and the advice is to be disenrolled and they appeal that, what then do they have to do? Is it bring an attorney? Is it?
They can bring an attorney, okay? And what we found in the past is that sometimes when we tell them that they have to bring the burden of proof, most families will just disenroll and just, stay with our decision. But we do have some families right now who are appealing, and oftentimes, that kind of signal suggests that they feel confident that there is some level of evidence they can prove that they stay in our community. We have to hear them out.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the appeal happens, there's a scheduling process. Is there a point where if the family continues delays or doesn't create an opportunity to be heard, because if they don't hear, then they can just kind of hang out? Is there a deadline, say, look, we need to meet within 30 days, or you need to find a way to schedule this, to prioritize this appeal process?
I coordinate the scheduling through my assistant and the family, as well as the hearing officers. There is no hard deadline, but ultimately we try to aim to get it done as soon as possible.
Any further discussion on this topic? Okay.
Motion returned to the table.
Second.
Second by Ms. Wiltie, all in favor?
Aye.
Super. Thank you so much. We'll move on to committee assignments and reports. We do have a resignation and an appointment on the athletic review committee, and that is noted on your document. And so we thank Mr. Marcom for his service, and we look forward to Mr. Estrella joining the athletic review committee. The renaming committee will be meeting this month. And we'll move on to our committee reports. Ms. Carol Fabian, Curriculum Committee, met on March 20th.
We did. We met, we had to hold a special meeting on March 20th where we were presented with several of the items that we approved this evening: the biotech curriculum, the AP macroeconomics, and then the allied health foundations 1 and 2. We also had a presentation from Sue Schmidt regarding the science of reading and the district's where we stand with evaluating the approved reading programs from the state. The committee, it has moved through the second committee, which was comprised of administrators, teachers, parents, myself, another curriculum committee member, and it has been narrowed down to 2 possible programs for further evaluation, which are moving on to the superintendent's committee next.
And then the board will receive
And
a
then we will,
presentation at some point.
receive a recommendation.
Great, thank you so much. Any other comments, questions, input?
I mean, I think the 3 curriculums that we approved, I think that I loved how they were all hands-on. I think that was great. The employment side, the job shadowing pieces to it, I think are all very important to the students.
Super. Well, thank you guys. We'll move on to our finance committee report. Ms. Welty, we met just prior to this.
We sure did. Our finance committee meeting was held this evening at 6:30. We discussed 2 budget transfers that were required, that were approved by the committee and brought to the board for approval. Currently, we are in a waiting pattern with our fiscal year 24 budget, and on April 19th, Dr. Sunday and Mrs. Mangini will present to our ordinance meeting, our ordinance committee at the town level. So I encourage everybody to tune into that. And our next finance committee meeting is April 24th.
Any other questions or discussion for Ms. Welty? Thank you very much. Our school planning committee met twice this month, on March 2nd and also March 22nd. Ms. Cupie, Mr. Henrik, would you like to give us an update?
Sure, and feel free to jump in, Mike. So I already touched on the March 22nd meeting, which we all approved the capital improvement plan. But on our during our March 2nd meeting, we had a presentation from Durham regarding the zero emissions buses that all school districts are expected to adopt over the next several years. We discussed all the pros and cons of this eventual transition, and their plan is for all of their new vehicles over the next 5 years to be electric. This is not to say they won't have a diesel option, but I'm sure over that period of time, our fee per bus is likely going to be impacted, right? Because the cost of the electric buses are like double what it is for the regular school buses. So more to come there, but at least we're informed, we're aware, and we all need to follow this whole mandate over the technical several years.
It was an illuminating presentation.
It was heavy. It was really heavy, like a lot of technical pieces.
And I think the nice part about the presentation was he presented both sides.
Yeah.
It wasn't, electric buses are the answer. There's a lot of downsides, so a lot of downsides to electric buses, including the weight, the range, the infrastructure, the accuracy of the range, because there's a number of things that have an impact on that. So it was good to hear both sides. So it wasn't, we weren't being hard sold on electric buses. It was very informational, I thought, very informational presentation. It was glad to hear it.
And I think just the impact of it all is going to affect districts differently, because some districts, they buy their own buses, like they own their own buses, whereas we don't. So we don't have, to provide the infrastructure for storing batteries and, charging stations and all that sort of stuff. So it's crazy.
It was a lot. It was a lot, but it was a good presentation. Mr. Henrik, anything else?
No, and I think, again, we had talked about a little bit more about planning, get involved, up front on some of these things and retaking our responsibilities. So hopefully we can become a more proactive board in the future. Yes.
Great, thank you. And liaison met on March 15th, 2023.
So yeah, we met, Dr. Sunday was there, had some discussions about the budget and some other things coming up, and I don't know, I think they listen, so, we'll see where it goes. I'm somewhere in the middle of, I think, Dr. Sunday and Mayor Hoydick, so I think there's room for discussion in there, but it was a good meeting. I thought it was cordial. I thought it was productive, and I think people listen, and I think the town, whether we like it or not, the town is an integral part of our decision-making process, so it's imperative that we have a good relationship with them, so they do listen. So they understand, because there are some things they maybe don't understand, there are some things that we maybe don't understand about them, so it's just, I think communication is key, and I thought it was fruitful.
Great. Ms. Madison, anything to add? Ms. Carol Fabian, anything to add? Hold on.
No, just to reiterate, it was solidified, and Mrs. Wiltie mentioned it in the finance report, that our ordinance meeting for Dr. Sunday and Pam to present at are April 19th. I'm just thankful that it is not April 3rd.
That's a Wednesday?
Yes, Wednesday, April 19th, in place
We
of our
are
meeting.
canceled next.
Third
Yes,
Wednesday.
yes, ma'am. Ms. Cupie.
Yes, question. So,
Yes.
Mike, you're on planning and the liaison committee. I was curious if there have been, maybe on your agenda or during those discussions, have you guys talked about Bunnell and flood? Because when we did the facility study 2 years ago, I believe, that document, the results, the findings were shared with all the council people and, everyone. So I understand people will say, well, I don't know if the town have an appetite for a new school. And, we're making our own assumptions, but have there been any discussion, around, well, flood needs renovating or to be rebuilt, or Bunnell, or any of that at all?
So I think the capital improvement plan reflects some significant investment from the town on renovating Bunnell. I don't think, especially after Stratford High, I don't think that the town has an appetite to bond another $100 million to build another school. So, so I do believe in our capital improvement plan, we do have some plans to renovate, looking at our long-term plans as to where we move students, and part of the capital improvement plan is to study where we move students, how we do that will impact some of that. But I think making Bunnell at that point, in my mind, Bunnell is probably the most in need. I don't have issue except for the design of Flood. I think Flood as a building is in pretty good shape. I think it can be reconfigured to accommodate some of our future needs, but I think from some of the private conversations I've had, I think that the willingness to renovate Bunnell or to bring it up to stuff is there, but I don't think the desire to bond another $100 million for a new high school is there.
Got it, that's good to know. The last part you said, because when you said you don't think or you believe, I'm just like, is that your assumption or based on some conversation, but you clarify that at the end, thank you.
Yeah, and they're not official conversations, it's just, it's social conversations with people who might be in the decision-making process. So there's nothing been formalized at this point.
Any other questions regarding our liaison meeting?
My thinking is, at some point, those conversations will come to the board and the superintendent at some point. I think that's realistic. That's a realistic expectation. I agree with you from the superintendent perspective. Now needs certainly more attention. The structurally flood is solid, right? The aesthetics of it, is to be safe. But now certainly needs the TLC. You said something that piqued my interest, and I would like to potentially. Oh, my mic is off.
So embarrassing.
You said something that piqued my interest, and you said, because you've been part of this process for quite some time now with us, and you've seen the conversations at the liaison meetings. You said you're somewhere between the superintendent and the mayor in terms of the budget. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, I'm still open-minded. I don't know that, and again, I still need to gather more information. The Alliance District, the bill to the taxpayers, the re-engineering, I'll just leave it at, I think that there's room on both sides.
So it sounds like.
But I'm not committing either way.
I'm not asking for a commitment, okay? I'm not asking for a commitment.
I'm just saying I'm open-minded still.
But I think you're open-minded now, certainly because you've been through these conversations and these workshops. So what I get from what you're saying is that you recognize that there is a need in some places. But you're right, there has to be a collegial conversation that exists. And I think, we've had surface level conversations, but we have not got into the nuts and bolts of what it really means or how we can work together. And I think that's largely what is missing. And for me as a superintendent, I think that's probably what underscores my disappointment in what we saw, right, on the 13th. So I agree with you. I'm not asking for 3.9. I did ask for 3.9. We knew we weren't going to get 3.9, but I think there's room for more conversations because, as I said earlier, there's 7,000 kids who will come to school next year. Yeah. Okay? So I appreciate your candidness.
And I think we're on much better footing at this point this year than we were, at least from conversation points. We're on a much better footing this year than we were. Last year we had a little rocky start. I think this year it's gone a little bit smoother, but.
Yeah, I think last year there was no conversations. This year I think conversations have happened, but I think the conversations need a little bit more depth, right? Practical depth. But we'll see how this plays out over the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of work to do. There's no doubt about that.
I do believe that our students, our staff, we need to fund that. That's, Mayor Hoydick, one of the first things he said to me is the best economic development tool is a good education system. So, but then the question is, how do we get there? And it's always, there's always two sides. So there's two ways to get there. So hopefully we can come to some compromise and that makes everybody, so that everybody's the least upset. Because not everybody's going to be happy.
That approach. And it's not about making everybody happy. We're always going to be transparent about our side. We just have to have the conversation, to your point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
So we look forward to April 19th. It's an exciting day. Moving on to policy review. Y'all didn't meet, but you did a lot of work before that. So thank you for all you do. And athletic review, Mr. Kennedy, you guys did not meet, but you'll be meeting in April. Excellent.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
If I could just, I know a while back, Mr. Kennedy had come and made a presentation about changing some of our I think, athletic requirements. And we've sent it over to policy, but I don't know that necessarily it would need to go to policy. It seems like a redundant step. We've had a committee that's created policy. Now we're going to a policy, and because of the time, because of the athletic season, we'll start, I mean, this one's already in swing, but our new athletic season is gonna start around the summer with the summer training. I think we should try to expedite it and maybe skip that redundant step, bring it directly to this board.
Are we referring to the handbook or the?
So that missed the pony, because I did send an email saying I was fine with the proposed language. I think there are things in that handbook that needs to be more explicit, just frankly. In terms of accountability, like I didn't want to, and part of my email said I didn't want to hold it up because I'm fine with the proposed language. However, there needs to be some additional work behind the scenes to make some changes. So it just missed this.
But I think that would also be a good conversation to have as a full board, because apparently everybody's got thoughts on it, so, you know, and we're gonna be the final voting body, but just maybe to expedite it so we can get in place for the.
What's the timeline that the ADs need?
Wanted it approved by April, but,
Okay.
you know, Ms. Cupid, you can kind of give us
Yeah, I
some of
sent
those
it on the
comments.
15th. I sent it on the 15th.
Perhaps if we could send it out to the full board, and then we can have a read, consider that a first read, and then,
And then we can also review it, if you give me some other comments, you know, we can also review it in our athletic meeting in April.
Yeah, you bet.
To prepare for the 24th.
Yeah, great, because it is timely, I understand that, so.
Yeah.
Great, thank you, Mr. Henry. Appreciate it. We'll move, oh, I'm sorry.
No, it just.
Okay. I'll move on to our other committee reports. Kate, Ms. Cupid, do you have anything to share with us today?
Sure. CAVE just announced their 2023 convention will be held on November 17th and 18th. Their Student Leadership Awards deadline is March 31st, so if we're planning to submit, we should make sure we be mindful of that deadline. Also, last week we did get a chance to have a discussion with Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum, who is the author of Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? It's part of CAVE's book club. It was an enlightening and emotional sort of discussion, but overall inspiring. It was a great experience to have her like actually come to us. While it's virtual, but still, you know, yeah. And there is a webinar, I believe, or a Zoom meeting with CAVE where they are going to be discussing the new HB 5003 that was just voted out of the State Education Committee. So you may want to join that since it's regarding funding the ECS.
And that's tomorrow.
I didn't write the date down. Sorry. I'm looking at my notes and it's off, but I'll send it out.
Excellent, thanks, Ms. Keeping. Great. CES, we had our monthly meeting on March 2nd, seems so long ago. They're plugging along, doing all of their great stuff. I know RCA is in their performance season, and so please feel free to support. A lot of our Stratford students are in their program, performing theater, music, what have you, so check that out. If I think I saw Mean Girls is being performed soon, am I right? No, but I think they're also performing it at RCA. Was it Legally Blonde? I don't know, guys, I'm sorry, I'm about to fake news maybe, but anyway, there is some sort of theater performance coming. It's so late. There is some sort of theater performance coming up, but they're amazing, and let's support our Stratford students who attend RCA. And that's it. Town building needs?
Mr. Llewellyn, we've asked him to be the liaison between the town and to report to us this planning, but didn't have any really new news at this.
Excellent. Anything else?
Well,
Yes,
just
sir.
one quick question.
Sure.
We've got an email last week that Dr. Gaeta will be retiring. Sad to see her go. She won't have to put up with me anymore, but the assistant superintendent's contract, I know, and I think in the budget, it's put in with the superintendent's line item. Where is that, is that an administrator's contract? Is it a separate contract?
It's a separate contract.
So that would be, so the assistant superintendent would be higher than the negotiation would take place for the contract and then brought to the board for approval? Is that the process, or, I don't know?
Not necessarily, but we would not hire the assistant superintendent without notifying the board. You would have an active role in that process, particularly through the interview process. So we are in the process of putting together an interview committee because of the nature of the position. It's the second, quote unquote, the second in command. We'll have board members represented, we'll have teachers represented, SEA executive represented, we'll have students, we'll have parents, we'll have a cross section of people who will have a say. A few days ago, HR Director Courtney Brown and I were having a conversation. We're looking to deploy a survey that will go out to the community soon that positions families and stakeholders to submit attributes that they're looking for in the next assistant superintendent. I will say right now, there is a significant amount of interest, external and internal. Okay, so we do anticipate it'll be a competitive process, and our aim is to make sure we hire the best person to continue to advance our work. We've made it very clear that what happens from a curriculum instruction, assessment, and intervention standpoint is going to be big work over the next couple of years. So we need to make sure we have the right person.
So, but beyond just the hiring process, the contract, I mean, I think we obviously negotiate your contract, we negotiate the teachers.
But our only employee is Dr. Sunday.
Okay, but we are on the negotiating committee for the other union contracts, or no?
We have a representative on the, and we,
Yeah, I can speak to this. We negotiate a contract that's fair market price. We're looking for market rates. We do a survey. I'm reaching out to other superintendents to see what the market rate is for assistant superintendents, and we will offer a competitive contract to whoever is considered a finalist.
I'll ask more questions later, but yeah.
great, thank you. Before we wind up, we do have a PLC day on Wednesday, is that correct?
Correct.
Let's make sure. I didn't even know.
No,
What is
not
it?
Wednesday.
What is it?
Last week.
PD. Thank you. A PD day on Wednesday. For as a parent, it's all the same to me. And so it'll be an early dismissal day on Wednesday. Just wanted to clear that up since I did not remember until today either.
I just have one quick thing.
Yes, ma'am.
If that's okay. Because we see Dr. Graff here, I just wanted to speak on, well, I won't speak for everybody, but how exquisite your school was when we visited for Miss Record's ceremony. If no one has seen a climate specialist, I saw them at each corner and they stood out in their t-shirts, and it just was like, it was a very peaceful learning environment, and I just wanted to bring some spotlight and praise to Bunnell's Hallways that day.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It means a lot coming from a Stratford High.
It means a lot coming
Really impressed with now. Last year was active in the fall, but they've come a long way, and they're just doing outstanding work, and it's always a joy to visit now.
Wonderful leadership.
Thank you very much. Anything else? I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting at 9:34 p.m.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Wiltie, second by Ms. Calfabian, all in favor? Aye. Super. See you guys next month.